This was a really good book. I waited to review this because I thought my friend Doug might want to jump in on the commentary, but he's camera shy. Look, Doug, you made William Stoner sad, pensive even. Oh well. This was a great book, though. You know, this book reminded me. This book reminded me of the way Steven Spielberg and blockbuster directors break movies up into set pieces, and how every scene is this really cogent, unit. Each one of these chapters was about something, and even though it wasn't always immediately apparent, by the end of it, you kind of saw what each chapter was building to and what it was about, what the theme was. And sometimes the chapters gave you insights into other characters, like his wife or the love of his life later, or his daughter a little, some of his coworkers. It's great. It's a really interesting book. It's just about somewhat ordinary person, but unique in some ways. Born in 1900, grows up in a farming family, Missouri. His name's William Stoner. And no, it's not by the John Williams that is that musician that does movie scores. This guy was a professor at the University of Denver. Here's someone who says it's a perfect novel. Utterly riveting, because the author treats his characters with such tender and ruthless honesty. It's in-house. The introduction says that if the book has a flaw, it's in the depiction of the wife. Anyway, so Stoner's his character, grows up on a farm, and you get just a really good, close examination and really solid, clean writing. So he grows up on a farm, but then one day his dad's like, I heard about this new college. Maybe you should go there, and it'll help teach you agriculture and things that'll help with the farm. And he's like, okay. And so he goes, but then he takes an English class and falls in love with the language. And with just the idea of literature, I think. Because he's translating soon from other languages, studying the classics in that old way that people used to, or maybe some people still do, PhDs and so on. And so, like, one chapter that's very tense is when he has to tell his parents that he's changing his major. His dad it's like going to be devastating to his dad, who was really counting on this help on the farm. And I thought of Growth of a Soil a little bit, and how Itzhak and Inger grew apart from their kids. And his parents are really well drawn. So he gets married, and it's kind of a strange, awkward marriage of convenience or something. You feel drawn into it as if, I don't know, it's so strange. These things can happen. And like almost immediately his marriage reveals himself to just like be nothing, basically. And he's just like stuck in this situation. But eventually, like, they have a kid, and the kid's story is like kind of a sad tragedy too. The author considered this character's life a total success, that he's an example of someone who does their job and does it well. And I think there is like a quietly heroic quality to this character. But also there's a character who refuses to act sometimes and feels like life is more to be acted upon than anything else. He does make some big decisions in life. And he has a meaningful romance at one point. He's like not even with his wife, basically, like has separate rooms and has had no physical contact with her in years. But then even that like is instantly threatened by stupid school pressures, and there's a weird rivalry with another professor that's a part of it. It's really just this other professor being awful. There's some really beautiful moments. When his daughter is young, and there's just always beautiful thoughts. And there's this one chapter where you kind of see what he's been teaching in all these literature classes, because he ultimately becomes a professor, and it's kind of a campus book in a way for a while. Though it never loses sight of Stoner. It always keeps very close hold on him. It's a telling book more than a showing book, but its telling is so rich with detail that what's the difference? It often has summary, but you do get dialogue, bits of dialogue. It just like moves at a clip through months and years. My friend Doug said that when he flipped back to the beginning to reread some stuff, it was striking to him how young the character seemed, like the character is being subtly aged the whole text along. Yeah, it's a great read. Will I reread this? Definitely. This is like, I recognized a classic, and I plan to pick up other books by this author. He's only got like 4. Nick Hornby says it's a brilliant, beautiful, inexorably sad, wise, and elegant novel. I really like Nick Hornby as a reviewer. It says The Believer, but I bet that was in his column stuff I've been reading. I used to have 3 collections of that in book form I gave away. But I got a lot of great recommends from his book column. Lots. Part of Stoner's greatness is that it sees life whole and as it is, without delusions, yet without despair. Tim Kreider. I have a book of his essays. The best quiet book I've ever read and the most heartbreaking Tom Bissell. Yeah. Sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's really kind of tragic. I don't know. If I see myself in this at all, it's somebody who finds it hard to really believe in free will sometimes. Like, how can there be free will? We are who we are and we're on these paths. I'm remembering now that when I first finished this book, because all my thoughts have fled since I've waited so long to discuss this, but, a lot stayed with me too. But I'm remembering now that when I first read this book, I felt twofold. One, that I had wasted my whole life, and that I was like this character. And 2, that everything was beautiful, Yeah, it's really one of those books that leaves kind of a luminous halo around everything, an aura. So I marked this up. It will remind you of why you first started reading novels, to get inside the mystery of other people's lives. G.G. Myers. In many ways, it recalls the best work of Thomas Wolfe, James T. Farrell, and Sinclair Lewis, as well as the more recent Wallace Stegner and Tobias Wolff. Well, that's like a checklist of 2 reads then, because I like Thomas Wolfe, I like Sinclair Lewis, I like Wallace Stegner, and I like Tobias Wolff. I guess I need to read James T. Farrell, especially since both he and I take a name from a 7th century Irish king, Feargal. Farrell's my middle name. Here's his other books. Augustus, Butcher's Crossing, English Renaissance Poetry, a collection of shorter poems. Wow. Nothing But the Night. So 3 other novels and a poetry collection. Well, it's more like an anthology, it sounds like. Selected by him. Why not? I'll get them all. All published by NYRB, so they'll match and look nice on the shelves together. Because that's all literature really is to me. It's decorations. I don't care about any of this crap. Just look good on the shelf. Is it pretty? Does it have nice colors? I fooled you all. I don't care about books. I could collect chunks of plastic that looked identical to this. I'd do that. That's not true. I'm just joking around. I don't know. No, this is a really beautiful book. So much came alive in this to me. I should quote a passage or something. They buried his father in a small plot in the outskirts of Boonville, and William returned to the farm with his mother. That night he could not sleep. He dressed and walked into the field that his father had worked year after year, to the end that he now had found. He tried to remember his father, but the face that he had known in his youth would not come to him. He knelt in the field and took a dry clod of earth in his hand. He broke it and watched the grains, dark in the moonlight, crumble and flow through his fingers. He brushed his hand on his trouser leg and got up and went back to the house. He did not sleep. He lay on the bed and looked out the single window until the dawn came, until there were no shadows upon the land, until it stretched gray and barren and infinite before him. Well, I thought this was interesting. In the introduction, there's a mention that the author resented that poems and novels are subjected to exegesis, that they're to be studied and understood rather than experienced. I don't know. I don't feel like scholars are trying to negate the experience, Not good ones anyway. They're trying to complement it, even enrich it, add to it, deepen it, broaden it. I love knowing about things. I can watch a VH1 pop-up video show and then still enjoy the song afterward. Anyway. He was kind of secretly telling his readers to read with joy, That's won the National Book Award in 1973 for Augustus. Huh. Yeah, the intro says that if the book has a flaw, it's how Stoner's wife is portrayed. But, I don't know, sometimes there just are negative characters in a life, I kind of think it can be bold writing to not pull a punch, to draw some false equivalency. There is a tendency that writers have that's probably good overall to kind of want to level the playing field and say everyone is of equal moral value in this story. Only you look at it from their perspective, But sometimes a story has a villain or just a character that doesn't grow. That said, who doesn't prefer round characters? But I think she's a pretty round character. And when she's young, you get a lot of insight into her and how she is when they first marry. But it's I don't know. It kind of is a life of quiet desperation on some level. And you see the effects of this life on the generation after them because they have a kid. And she has a kid. And their daughter ends up being kind of a sad alcoholic. Spoiler alert, I guess. After kind of living under her mom's thumb the whole time. And any closeness that she and her dad ever shared, growing up, was kind of shut down by the mom. She shouldn't be in here when you're working, But, then you think, well, her kid seems like he's going to turn out okay. But you don't know. He has an alcoholic mom, so maybe not. And it's so interesting, The best books just leave you feeling I gotta figure this out. It is the mystery of someone else's life. That's a good review quote. Yeah, I absolutely love this book. If you want to, I thought about A Tree Grows in Brooklyn after I read this because I was I felt equally delivered of a human life, into my psyche. I don't know if you've all ever read Edwin Abbott's Flatland, but I think most of us are living in 2 dimensions only, we're like a dot. We can't imagine anything coming from outside of us. And that's one dimension. 2 dimension is a flat surface. Yeah, I think most of us are 1 dimension. And when something comes at us that really feels whoa, this is from actually another person, I really felt the point of contact there. It's a cool experience, and literature can do that sometimes. Yeah, A Tree Grows in Brooklyn does that for me, and I had that experience here with this. I should read more stuff like this, because I do like action-packed things. I like Godzilla movies and books where things happen. This shows that there's drama even in a life lived mutedly, and that there's a beauty in an intellectual life and having a job and a thing that you do. Even if he does kind of do it indifferently. He's not I love teaching. Yeah. Such a fascinating figure. But feels very real. Really does. You're this person exists. Well, here he does. Striking title. Nice find. That classic NYRB thing going on. So many interesting moments in this book. One is years after Stoner was with this love of his life that he had to set aside for his career and for her career. Her book comes out and he reads it on his own. And he just loves it. Now looking back at the book, I'm was that the best moment of his life? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm I wonder how long it'll be until I read this again. I'm a year, 2 years? I want to read it again. It's a very good book. It's interesting. It's kind of a condemnation and an excoriation of any part of yourself that doesn't live fully. I did feel the sting of that, Literature can be like a mirror when you see characters living aspects of yourself, Yeah, I had a song lyric recently. Tried to live a life, or almost. Like, there's always the question: how hard did you really try? I feel like so much of life is just deferring, and you can see the cumulative effect of it, and that sort of thing in a work like this that takes such a broad scope. It's literally his whole life, and it will be his whole life because at the beginning it talks about his death at the very beginning of the book, and how it was remarked a little bit, and a book was dedicated in the library at the school in his honor. But then the years went by, and his name was mostly forgotten. There was this one plaque. It's cool. It'd be cool to live forever and all that, but it doesn't make anything less beautiful that it ends. Maybe it makes things more beautiful. Finite, fleeting, golden. I've decided to adopt this book. This will be my 5th child. Kids, you've got a new sibling. Anyway, it's just a really good book. Just talking about it has put me in a better mood. Earlier, this idiot neighbor of mine in a nearby apartment building was just yelling all this racist stuff with his friend with their window open. And it's like midnight. Oh yeah, it's like the middle of the night right now. Just like classic main character syndrome. I'm the main character. Everyone wants to hear me at this hour. So I was belting out, "Shut up!" Which seemed to do something. And then I was like, "Close your window!" And, "All right, children, now it's quiet time." Yeah. Was thinking about also trying out, "Hey, other neighbors, who would like to form a small group to go visit this person?" Anyway, yeah, my notebook of observations out my bedroom window took a turn with that whole incident today. I was hoping to note birds, the occasional cat, or squirrel. Anyway, it's nice to talk about this book, think about this book. I had fun that my friend read it at the same time as me. We've had some really good conversations about it. We're both fans now. We're like, that book's awesome. I can still hear people talking out in front of my place. People keep crazy hours around here. Why am I up? Oh, I drank coffee late in the day. That's why. My daughter Willow brought back this really good coffee from Costa Rica, and I couldn't help but make 2 pots today. And the second one was a little late in the day. All right, well, read this book, y'all, if you feel like reading a good book with the person on the page. A nonfiction equivalent of that feeling for me was the memoir Another Bullshit Night in Suck City by Nick Flynn. I really felt like, whoa, human life on the page. That's a very good book. It was adapted into a movie as Being Flynn with Robert De Niro, and it's pretty good. Though it's interesting. It's interesting to see something nonfiction adapted into film like that. Yeah. There's so much that's strange about nonfiction. I could go off about nonfiction, but this is fiction, and it's not like autofiction. I mean, yeah, the writer was a professor, but this is a made up life that rings very true. I would bet it's a composite of some real ones that the writer encountered, probably partly his own. I mean, it's weird. The introduction said that he taught at the University of Denver. And then this little note from the author says, this book is dedicated to my friends and former colleagues in the Department of English at the University of Missouri. But there's I didn't read any mention of him living in Missouri. Huh. Wow, look how many books there are in the NYRB series. 1 page, 2nd page, 3rd page. Another page. Another page. Another page. And another. Yeah. Well, will I ever own that whole series? Probably not. I don't know that I even want to, but, well, that's a lie. Of course I would, though. And yes, New York Review of Books, you can win my channel's favor by just sending us a complete run. We can be bought. Now let's open the book and get our fortune. When did I do, sir? Did I do? It will be most helpful in my dissertation. I think that was just telling us to have a positive attitude and recognize what you can benefit from life in contributing to larger synthesizing works, from all you experience. Your quote-unquote dissertation. Have a good attitude and keep your eyes open. Sounds like good advice. Thanks, Stoner. Once in a while, a novel comes along that is so remarkable in its quality that it stands out not only as an example of what well-written fiction should be, but also as a satisfying reading experience all by itself. One of the most extraordinarily fine novels published in the past 50 years. Dallas Morning News. All right. Stoner says goodnight. Later.